So my name's Mark Irwin. I'm one of the STEM education officers from Education Scotland. I cover the North, in particular Argyll and Bute, Highlands, Western Isles and Orkney, and also along with Mary, we are both working 2 days a week on Learning for Sustainability and COP26, which we'll talk about later.
So, hi folks, you're very welcome to join us this evening at the end of what has been, I'm sure, a busy start to this week. My name's Mary Thompson and Mark's introduced himself, and we're delighted to be joined by a colleague, Christopher Gilbert, a team advisor who's going to be sharing a wee bit about his thinking around the curriculum and learning for sustainability, and to Denise McCall, who's the head teacher at Logan Primary School in East Ayrshire. Really delighted that Denise is going to be able to share her journey with us around learning for sustainability. And as Mark said there, what a better time, no better time to be looking at learning for sustainability this year than this year with COP26 just on the horizon. So without further ado, we're going to carry on. And as I said, the session is being recorded, but feel free to kind of pop questions and comments into the chat, and we'll do our very best to sort of respond to them and to pick up any kind of questions at the end. So moving forward, we have here, as I said, Denise. We'll have Kit, followed by Kit, a wee bit about kind of some of the plans that are emerging for COP26, and then time for discussion at the end. So you're really in for a treat to be able to hear about Denise's practice. So I'm going to just go on to mute just now and hand over to Denise. So you're very welcome, and having had a couple of conversations with Denise before, it's such an exciting story that we're going to be able to hear, and I'm sure you will be inspired. And Denise has put out an offer about sort of keep staying in touch, and you're learning a little bit more about her work in Logan. So Denise, if you wouldn't mind, I'll hand over to you, and thank you so much for coming along this evening.
Not a problem. I'm just going to try and find, is that where we are? Can everybody see the presentation? Is that all right?
Okay. We're on the word cloud, Denise, at the moment.
All right, so let's see.
That's you?
Is that me? Sustainability for schools?
That's you, that's perfect.
All right. So, as Maddie says, I would like to talk about, I suppose, our journey, or my school's journey, about sustainability and how, I suppose, in Logan we've used that as a context for school improvement, and how it underpins our school improvement plans and the contexts for learning and our curriculum, and it permeates right through everything that we now do at Logan. I'm just going to see if we can move on. Oh, it's not letting me move on. Hang on. Wait to see if I can just share. I'm going to share it that way. It's maybe easier. Sorry.
That's okay, Denise. Do you want me to share for you? Would that be?
If I do this, it should work fine. Can you see it all fine there?
Yep, we can do.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way for me. So just to give you a wee bit background about where we are in Logan, for those that don't know what a wonderfully great wee place it is out in deepest, darkest Ayrshire, up the kind of Cumnock water, as they would say, in our neck of the woods. And it was really a mining village initially. So although we're classed as remote rural, it certainly has more the feel of being post-industrial. And with that post-industrial and the decline of the mining industry and then various other industries that came along, it really has had a bit of a done as a community, and is described as an area of quite severe deprivation, with most of the children, I think it's about 96% of the children living within the SIN D1 and 2. When I went to the school in 2017, it had just come out of a really poor inspection, and I was put in there to try and see what we could do to turn the fortunes of the school around. And one of the first things we had to look at was, well, what's the context for this school? And digging into that kind of granular data, and I've got the SIMD data up here. When we looked at it, housing was good, but that education and skills and parents and right across the board was really poor, and it was having an impact in all our kids there. You can see that I've highlighted it there. So we knew that we needed to do something to change the school, the quality of teaching and learning in terms of quality indicator 2.3 was not good. There wasn't really a coherent curriculum in terms of our planning, in terms of our statutory provision for learning for sustainability. None of these things were there. The highlight was dress down days and a Friday. So we needed to do something about that, and something about it quick.
Denise, I think we might have a wee issue, just your slides might be sticking. So is it okay if I just kind of take back control?
Yes, you can.
And if we go with...
Apologies.
No, it's okay. We just might have a wee bit of time just to get us up and running again. Okay. Colleagues, thank you for bearing with us while we just get this, overcome a wee kind of technical hitch there. Denise, can you confirm that you can see this?
Yes, I'm there, and if you just click it once more, the wee arrow should pop up at our SIMD data.
Okay.
That's us.
Thanks, colleagues, for your patience.
And if you want to go on to the next slide, please, Mary.
There's a couple that have said they can't see the presentation. Right, that's great. So you can see it now. Excellent.
Okay, that was maybe with me taking it. So when we had a look at what we were going to do, we had to think about the big drivers for our school. And it was very hard in engaging with parents. We did lots of engagement with parents. We couldn't separate the attainment and the education away from, that poverty attainment gap, away from the culture and some of the issues that were around the school. And we had to kind of think of a way of pulling those two things together. So we were obviously driven by the National Improvement Framework. You ping that one up, Mary. Should be a wee, yep. So looking at that parental engagement, how could we bring parents in? How could we look at what the barriers were to their engagement with the school and their engagement with learning? And looking wider, looking at the National Performance Framework, there it's there, and thinking about those safe and included communities, resilient communities. And it was really clear when we had an analysis of our community, just how hard people were finding it and how difficult it then meant for families that were stressed financially to then go on and expect children to attain within that. Looking in those two together, it seemed like quite a natural step forward to then look at the global goals for sustainable development, which really underpin the National Performance Framework. The aims are the same, and also linking in with that UNCRC. So it all kind of made sense that this could be the driver, along with Curriculum for Excellence and that entitlement to learn for sustainability, that this could drive our school improvement. It could drive our context for learning and drive very much our curriculum. Thank you. I feel as if I'm doing the COVID briefing here. Next slide. So the first thing we kind of had to have a look at was our curriculum. And again, pinning it back obviously to those global goals about what a curriculum looked like for our school. So when we were talking about it, we spoke when we were doing our consultation, when we were talking to children, when we were talking to parents and other stakeholders, we very much used the language of the global goals. And if Mary, if you could pop that one up there. And we talked about quality education. So when we met with parents and we worked comprehensively to create a Logan Loves Learning toolkit for self-evaluation, we put it in terms of quality education. We looked at health and well-being, something that's so important just now as we come out of the COVID situation. And we also looked at gender equality, which was a big driver in what was quite a traditional community in terms of gender roles, but it had the heart ripped out it through unemployment. When we were also looking at our curriculum, we went on to look at wider achievement, about the curriculum, I suppose, in its entirety, to look at, if you pop that one up, Mary, to look at, how we develop the young workforce, how we looked at our contexts for learning, taking it outside into what we would imagine would be more traditional learning for sustainability, outdoor learning, but also looking at that jobs and sustainable use. And then finally, we took it right out of the classroom and we took it into the community with those big drivers that are there for community, and also drivers in the school. If you think about the closing the poverty attainment gap, the drivers about poverty proofing, the zero hunger, employment, and reducing inequalities, and that institution and partners working together. So these became the drivers, I suppose, for how we looked at the curriculum. And the children are all okay with this. The parents are all aware of how these fit and how the school kind of maps itself against these. Could I have the next slide? So I suppose for lots of people in their journey with learning for sustainability, it's that green, it's the eco, it's the outdoor learning that makes that starting point. And certainly for our teachers, when we spoke about that was their into access, jump on point, I suppose, for learning for sustainability. So one of the things we did was to create a lead role for sustainability. We used some of our PEF funding for that, and we had somebody that was coming in and to really take that lead, to take on all the offers that we have in East Ayrshire in terms of our learning outdoors team, and to liaise with them, to be an interface and to support teachers in really taking those first steps. We used the PEF money and we used some of our non-contact time as well to allow that working between staff and with kids and really getting kids outside. We then went on to get an eco cabin, if you want to put up the first picture. My husband's just popped in to say hello. So we got an eco cabin in the school grounds. And again, that was a beautiful outdoor space, to extend that classroom, to give teachers that were needing that wee bit of encouragement, so to speak, in quite a windy and windswept place to go outside. And then we looked at other green issues, I suppose, as you could consider them. We had a reduction in lamination, all driven by the kids, a reduction in food waste, and we also had a number of campaigns that were led by the children. If you want to pop the next pictures up. We were, and I have to always caveat this with Sunnyside Primary, who had their sparkle debacle, and I'm always going to give them credit. They had been working on it before us. We were picked up by the press, and suddenly we were the first school in the UK to ban glitter, and I'm sure lots of you have done it, probably before us, but it was really good, and it kind of highlighted the small changes that children can make. And I think that was really important, because some of our kids get quite down when we were talking about these green issues, and it empowered them. We've also got, we had a ministerial visit from the Children's Minister, and the children didn't care that it wasn't the Environment Minister. They just were out there with their placards doing their Greta piece. We said they couldn't go and strike, but they could certainly go out and protest. And then we've also been involved more recently in the regrounding of the school, the regreening of the school grounds. So that planting, I think we've planted over 400 trees in our school grounds, and various polytunnels and flower beds and all those kind of traditional sustainability projects. We also have a school apiary, which took me a wee bit to get past health and safety, but we did a study and we actually had less things in the first year than the other school that's fairly local. They were getting harangued by wasps, and I think our bees were being very kind in keeping the wasps away from us. And what we've done is we have a team of children that come out and do the hive inspections, but we're also able to stream that using Teams, and all those lessons that we learned during the kind of lockdown period in COVID. We're able to stream that into all classes, so even small children that are not comfortable going out to the apiary are able to go out and do that. And that's a bee house hive there, and if anybody else is interested in beekeeping, I would ask you to make contact with me. I'm really happy. It can be done very successfully, and if you want to join our bee team, not the A team, the B team, you're welcome to just send me a link on Glow and we can add you to it. We run it through Teams. And as part of that, we have got a kind of accreditation, or in-school accreditation for husbandry, which includes beekeeping. And I think our last slide photograph that comes up there, we also have school chickens. And that's been a great one for children. And it's always unexpected outcomes for that, about pupils who use the chickens to self-regulate. We had one wee boy who really was struggling with being at school and maintaining his place at school, you know, really having difficulty. He actually came to us from another school and was at risk of permanent, you know, being in a base for the behaviour base. So he came to us, and really through using the chickens as part of his self-regulation, who knew chickens, he was able to really engage, and his learning, we used the Leuven scale to monitor that, and real impact in his learning and his ability to learn. So really widening that curriculum, being able to offer alternative pathways, so huge, more than the sum of its parts really, for that as a starting point. Give the next slide, Mary, please. We then, as I say, we took it out and looked at it in terms of wider achievement, and we created a passport of skills for our young people, and really was looking at that, and it's the breadth of context that we have within the school, that we're meeting some of those other global goals. So we had hospitality skills, we had our horticulture and husbandry with a polytunnel, all the children being able to make cuttings, potting, growing, harvesting, ground preparation, all those skills that we were recognising as skills for life and for work, putting that in the context, getting them outside, but also bringing in the rest of the curriculum very naturally through your maths, through your literacy, taking it outside. And what we noticed was using things like the Leuvens, that actually when children were outside, they were far more engaged with whatever the curriculum was being offered, maths or literacy. Could I have the next photo? We also, when we were looking at that, we had horticulture and husbandry. We also had financial management skills in there, again thinking about that poverty. Care and nurture skills, we looked at STEM, leadership and organisation, and hospitality. These were the big drivers, being quite rural, hospitality, care and husbandry and farming are all potential employers, and we reached out to some of our community stakeholders. This was a local business, the RAD group, who offered to train all our young people in hospitality skills, and that then has had a huge impact in the school and some of the great things that we're doing there. When we looked at gender and diversity, we were almost monocultural when we had a wee look at the school, and in terms of that global goal about diversity, we really needed to take a look at ourselves, and we've used PEF money to widen the resources that we have and to really reflect better the communities that surround us, in the cities, and to reach out. Next slide. Again, gender stereotyping. We're really lucky to have quite a diverse staff, and Robert is our senior early years practitioner, and really breaking down some of those roles, within that and showing that caring side. Robert also runs a Mellow parenting group for particularly for dads, to try and support them to take that care and nurture on. And again, that's about that gender role. And part of it was to build a whole team approach. This was done, it was teaching staff, catering staff, that's our catering there, and really making a full team approach to this. Kate was absolutely delighted, our catering manager there, when we were able to reduce the food waste down by 2/3. Absolutely super. And that was her working alongside us, placing that value in food, placing the value in the eating experience that we have, and really building up that around that. And again, zero hunger, catering skills that we were working with the kids, and that's our wee clean-up crew there. Thank you. But we decided that we would take it really even beyond that, and the skills that the children were learning in terms of the passports really push that out and look at some of those bigger issues for our community. So we looked at leadership learning for our kids, and we opened up a community cafe. Got a wee slide there. And what we have is once a week, and obviously this is pre-COVID, and we've been engaging with our older clientele, shall we say, some of the oldest school pupils that we have. We Sadie there. So they were coming in. So we were dealing with community engagement. We were looking at intergenerational working. And the kids in there were running this as a leadership opportunity. So they were helping to set the menus, serving, using the skills that they had gained. But also they were working in their talking and listening. And it was time that suddenly became learning that had just been a lunch, and it has been such a valuable input into our school calendar, and just so valuable and rich in terms of a context for learning. Thank you. We also reached out to thinking about that quality of work and reducing barriers. We reached out to our colleagues in adult learning, and they came in and they ran an apprentice project. A lot of parents were struggling to get into work, and obviously then the financial barriers that had for them and their families. So we ran an apprentice project, which was really about talking and listening for parents. We have real issues with talking and listening across the community. So they were coming in and, working in interview skills. We then had an apprentice where they had to find out who would be hired. And they got the opportunity to then come in and volunteer in the school. And that allowed me then to write a reference for them. And we had 63% of the parents that did that, and both cohorts went on to further learning and training, including the Me to You project, which is again the local authority offering learning and volunteering opportunities, but also giving them the training. So real family learning, parents working with kids, but to address what was a really big issue is unemployment and poverty within our community. Thank you. And that was one of our Me to You dads who came in, and he got a chance to work as a janitor with the Me to You project, and he's going on to get employment with the local authority. Thank you. One of the most successful things we had was our pop-up restaurant, and we worked with a local charity who came in over 10 to 12 weeks. They offered cooking classes for parents and children, which was absolutely super. But at the end of it, the parents got an accreditation. They got their food hygiene certificate, and they also got a level 1 cooking certificate, which was absolutely super. Whilst that was going on, though, they were also able to offer dignified food. And one of the things that we have, and we've really thought about carefully, was making sure that there's no stigma involved with any of these interventions, making sure that it's open to all. You know who your target families are, but making it a universal offer destigmatizes it and means that it's universal and everybody can drop in. So while the families were in cooking, they were able to access dignified food provision and pay forward. And then after that, once they were trained, we had a monthly pop-up restaurant. And I think we were just before COVID doing 90 covers a night. So quite a busy wee restaurant. We took over the school kitchens, and we had everybody was able to come in. And for families, that kind of communal dining experience, being able to go out for a meal can make such a difference. And for the mums that were working in there, their sense of achievement, and the yes chef and no chef, and just, it was amazing to see. I'm sure Gordon Ramsay would be quite happy with 90 covers a month with that, certainly in one night. And here's another intervention that we had, again, looking at the kind of poverty proof, and we put a steamie within the school with access to washing machines and tumble dryers, and that's a lightly used clothes reel. And there was some learning in that for us, because obviously we were thinking, in terms of that access, poverty, zero poverty. We were thinking, about clothing. Actually, what went out of our steamie the most was bedding. We had got lots of duvets and continental quilts and quilt covers, and that went. People have got clothes to go about in, but they don't always have those kind of things at home, or those luxuries at home. So that was really valuable, and some invaluable lesson there. This was all building these relationships that let you get a feel for people. We also have in there a women's safe space, where we have resources from Women's Aid, we have sanitary products, and we also have sexual health materials, condoms and various bits that, it's an adult only space. But when you've got, we're 30 miles from the nearest sexual health clinic, so we felt that was an important resource to put into the school. We're the only embedded service, so that was a good way of us using that. And the last one is taco, and I've got my wee taco guy here. One of the problems, when we were engaging with all our families, we could see that there were problems. There were services that they couldn't access when we were talking to them, to speech and language. There was a lot of issues with do not attend or did not attend. So we thought, well, how can we best do this? And you can't do it yourself. The school's only part of that. So we created a model, a team around the community, thinking very much around that team of the child, around the child plan. And we got all these agencies to come in. So we got the health board to come in, social work, housing, vibrant communities, adult literacy, speech and language, even the physiotherapists. We pulled everybody in and said, well, what can we do? And lots of people have bought in, and we now have a real a plan that works at various levels. We've got baby chat right through to our older folk coming in, and when we got the health board also to come out and do an evaluative study of our lunches and the outcomes in terms of our intergenerational work for mobility, all these unexpected consequences, community cohesion has all been super. So working together has actually helped us to create a context for our learning. It's improved our attainment. Our attainment has shot up. Thankfully, when we've come back after COVID, we don't seem to have had the big drop that perhaps we were expecting. So there's been resilience built in there. And that working around certainly creating dialogue and being able to know the problems and sort them. So Nick, I think this is my last slide. So it's been a change for us. It's been a change in terms of the curriculum. It's been a change in our pedagogy in terms of that outdoor learning. I think that we all think about, but it's really impacted on our attainment. It's impacted on our outcomes for where we're hoping. It's impacted for our outcomes for our children in terms of that developing the young workforce and their understanding of the workplace and moving forward and opportunities, and also that sense of community. For a wee community that had taken a bit of a kicking, it's really kind of helped to build that. And I think I've got two photos here. This is a wee lady that had come up from our community hospital. So we're lucky enough to have a local hospital. And this wee chap, and he's quite happy for me to share this, he was really struggling being at school, fitting in. That wee boy took care of that lady that day, talked away to her, and even pushed her back to his wheelchair. That was a real context for learning and a real engagement and a real deep level for him in his learning. And he went on to be really successful and successfully transitioned into secondary. And our last one, this is one of my mums. This mum was a really, really stressed mum. She struggled really hard to engage with the school. She did the EAT project, and that was her after her kitchen, after doing the EAT project. And she said to me when she got a certificate, I said, are you pleased? You can put that in your fridge door. And she says, no, it's the first certificate I've ever had, so I'm going to put it in my front door. I'm that proud of it. So I suppose it's that real making change for our kids through learning for sustainability. It being more than just those green issues, more than just outdoor learning, but really looking at it in its entirety for your community and school and how that can help address your school improvement and obviously, really address that poverty attainment gap. Thank you.
Hi, Denise. So Mark Irwin here. That was fantastic. That was absolutely brilliant. Thought I knew it would be, to be honest, but it was really, really inspiring. We're getting a lot of chat there in the chat box. I'm going to come back to that. There was just a few things I wanted to highlight from my point of view. One of the main things for me is the fact that this is, frankly, transforming the community where you live. And I think sometimes when we think about learning for sustainability, and we think about the global goals, and we think about the huge issues of climate, we can sometimes feel a wee bit removed from that. And I think what you've just demonstrated there is, call them eco issues, we can call them green, we can call, but fundamentally it's about making your community better and more sustainable. And I think it's just so inspiring. There's a couple of wee things as well in there that I love is, I'm actually working on a piece of work now, which you've just basically summed up for me, is about working smarter and not saying we're going to do learning for sustainability. But that means we can't do too much about DYW at the moment, or we can't focus on STEM. Get a really brilliant, holistic view approach.
Yeah, I mean, we're a really small school, Mark, and I think one of the things is we needed bang for our buck. So,
Totally.
you know, and also, you know, when we had to make such a transformation, we got, you know, we were able to disengage from Education Scotland after 10 months. So it was all hands to the pumps. And you're looking at ways that you can offer the increase the offer without burdening class teachers. You know, and it's often, you know, it's over to you. It's over to you going to do this. Talking and listening was an issue. By bringing in those old folk, and I've got some lovely bits of video of some of those dialogues, by bringing in somebody that has got time to listen and talk to each individual child, you were able to make those small wins. So actually, by pulling all the agencies together, but that's exactly smarter working, not working in silos, bringing in the health board, bringing in all the other ones who also are great at doing a lot of the evaluation for you, can I just say, we've been able to actually free up staff to do some of the other interesting things. So it's almost bigger than the sum of its parts, and it's that smarter working that I think's made it so successful, because it's not just saying to you know, your teachers, it's over to you. We do a nurture. We've got a full school nurture programme. We don't where we have, you know, it's classroom assistants, it's janitorial staff, and everybody's got a wee nurture group that they do. Again, it's spreading the love, you know. A coalition of the willing, bring everybody that wants to be part of it in, and it certainly adds up to a curriculum that's exciting, it engages the children, but doesn't losing its rigour. It really offers those absolute context for learning.
So, yeah, I think if anyone's got any questions for Denise, if you want to maybe put them in the chat. We're going to move on to Kit, I think, now. But yeah, just... and obviously we'll thank you at the end there, Denise, as well. But it was absolutely brilliant, very inspiring. And I guess with the 4 contexts of learning, and we really think about that school at the heart of a community, you've just demonstrated that so well. We'll come back to that one, Kirsten. I'm going to now pass over to Kit.
Thanks, Mark. I think you've probably read my slides, so I'm going to try and put a bigger strategic context on what Denise has said, and try and put it into that whole curricular framework, and to think about the challenges that face you. So we're hopefully transitioning out of a COVID period. If you want to show the next slide, I think we have got parents that potentially have got a slightly improved understanding of education, because they've been having their learners at home with them, and they've been learning together, and hopefully we've managed to reduce some of the jargon, or that the parents understand some of the jargon that we're talking about, because they've been a bit more face-to-face with it. But Education Scotland will work hard to try and ensure that we produce some more jargon into the system. So outdoor learning has been about for a long time, and the next slide is a document that 2010, and it's well worth going back to these documents as a way of just thinking about how you can fit these into the curriculum that we have. That curricular support is already there. And sometimes they sit on the shelf and they gather dust, or we forget about them because there's so much other stuff that's been produced. So it was just to bring back to you that there are some things out there that are already supporting documents that it's worth dusting off and having a wee read about. The next document is still out there and still available. And again, it's about trying to think about how all of this fits into the curriculum for excellence. And as both Denise and Mark said, this isn't about doing more. This is about working out how you do things smartly, and thinking about how you actually achieve the outcomes for the curriculum. So if we look at the next slide, curriculum design is at the heart of everything that we do, and we have a range of entitlements that children and young people need to experience throughout the broad general education from P1 to the end of S3. And how can we use learning for sustainability, and how can we use outdoor learning to help overtake these outcomes, and how can we do it within the principles of curriculum for design? How can we use that as a lever to support us to improve the outcomes for learners? And as an attainment advisor, you're not going to be surprised when I'm going to say, how can we use it to close the poverty-related attainment gap and maximise children's attainment throughout the school? So I think building the curriculum sets out a series, outlines a curricular framework for learning, and outdoor learning can help us deliver that. And I think Denise has described how it works for her school and how she's used learning for sustainability and outdoor learning as a way forward. So next slide, please. So there's help out there. So far, so good. We understand that it has the potential to really have an impact on our learners. But outdoor learning also has an potential impact to be a bit of a blockage or an additionality or a stopper if we don't do it right. That staff will see it as another thing that they have to do. Staff will see it as a way of cluttering up the curriculum even further and putting another strain on them. So if you're a school leader, it is about trying to ensure that you understand where outdoor learning and learning for sustainability add value to your curriculum. Next slide, please. So we are all familiar with this particular document, which is just the framework, which includes the entitlements, and it includes the experiences and outcomes, and includes values and learning and teaching. And where does your vision for outdoor learning and learning for sustainability fit in to the curricular framework? How does it support you to deliver a curricular framework? So if I or a team and advisor for your local authority was to walk into your school and say, well, how are you using outdoor learning and learning for sustainability to reduce the poverty-related attainment gap? And can we use it as a way of reducing the stress that teachers face in trying to deliver the massive curriculum that Curriculum for Excellence is? And that's I suppose the big thinking that sits around all of this. It's not something that is a bolt-on. It's not something that is a have to. It's something that you need to do because of your curricular design expectations. Next slide, please. And it sits within the 4 capacities. And I think Denise has explained very clearly how that sits within her environment, how it underpins, how these 4 capacities underpin everything that she's wanting to do. I think she's explained very clearly to her learners becoming successful. We've seen them being confident. I don't know in your school how many of your learners would put on a bee suit and stand outside a beehive. They're certainly contributing effectively, and they're certainly becoming responsible citizens, and all that is delivered through a shared process. It's not something that is one person's responsibility. From what Denise has said, it's something that it's everybody's responsibility in the school, and they understand what it is. Which brings me on to the refreshed narrative. And these are just snapshots from what is an interactive resource, and I think potentially with COVID coming along, it's maybe got a wee bit lost in all of the other plethora of things that you're being asked to do, but it's still there, and it's still the expectation of what's happening. Help our children and young people gain the knowledge and skills and attributes needed for life in the 21st century. And how are you going to do that? By thinking about learning for sustainability. How does it tie together? And does everybody understand how that ties together? And is there anybody in your establishment who's going, well, I don't really know how it fits in, I'm just being told to do it? So there's some real serious thinking and some real serious hearts and minds that need to be achieved to make learning for sustainability and outdoor learning successful in your establishment. Next slide, please. So these are the areas when you are making the curriculum, because some of you may be thinking about or may be doing it or may have to remake your curriculum slightly. And I think if I was to take Denise into a room and put the single 100-watt light bulb on her and ask her questions around that, she has made it very clear that all of these elements have shone out in what she said. They're clear on their practical approaches. It's meaningful networks. They know their learners. They know the big idea and they understand their learners. So that is at the core of the decisions that you are making, which justify anything that you're going to do in your school. And you can therefore be able to see the impact that it's having. And it comes back to impact. If you put all this effort in and there's no impact, you're going to have to ask some questions about that, because we need to improve the attainment of our learners to close the poverty-related attainment gap. Next slide, please. So if you drill into the last slide I show you, and you click on being clear about practical approaches, it gives you some more ideas. Have a clear strategies for delivering excellence and equity for learners. So how are you going to get over the equity issues that are associated with learning for sustainability and outdoor learning? Are the pedagogies agreed in your school? Does everybody that is involved in developing your way forward understand the design principles? What are the progression pathways like? Or are people doing things in isolation? Is there a clear progression as children move in a primary school from P1 to P7, and even from early years into P1? And what does that progression look like when they cross the boundary into the secondary school? And it's very clear that Denise in her school has made links between learning and the world of work. And what are your links like, and do you understand the world of work as it applies to your environment? And what does embedded mean? And how do you demonstrate that things are embedded in the curriculum? And using knowledge of the local community and robust data to inform your offer is something that I know that lots of schools are thinking about and lots of schools are challenged. And how is your local authority supporting that? And how do you articulate and share your curricular rationale and narrative to everybody in your community? And if I go back to the slide about the jargon, how do you de-jargonize that? If you walked into a group of your parents and told them you're going to share your curriculum rationale and narrative, would they all turn off? So serious things that you need to have a clear understanding about in order to make learning for sustainability and outdoor learning a successful activity. Next slide, please. We need to see a big picture, and sometimes the big picture is a wee bit frightening and a wee bit surprising for people, but without the big picture then it all becomes a bit messy and a bit disconnected. Next slide. And again, this is back from 2015, but this is what works in the school. That broad inclusive curriculum has to have data. It has to have strong leadership. There has to be high quality learning and teaching, and we have to have excellent targeted support. And if you have that at the core of the decision that you make, you will also, as a consequence of that, close the poverty-related attainment gap in your school. Next slide, please. So all of you have challenges. We all have challenges ahead. But if we've got a curriculum rationale and planning right, those challenges will be easier to overcome and will not become blockages. Next slide. So if it's all become a bit much, we need to stop. And we need to seek the support from others. Next slide, please. I just thought, I suppose, that was a nice quote. You can only build a reputation on what you're doing. And clearly, Denise is building a reputation on what she's doing in her school. Next slide. So there's help out there from Barry, from Mark, from your attainment advisor, from a whole range of people within your regional improvement collaborative, within your local authority and from schools. So don't do this by yourself. Look for help and help will arrive. Next slide. But we've got to do the hard thinking. And if we do the hard thinking and we do it collaboratively, then we are more likely to be successful in the challenges around learning for sustainability that undoubtedly will face us as we move into a more normal face-to-face teaching situation. And that is the end of my presentation, I think, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Kit. That was great, really informative, and I think it really worked well with Denise as well there. So actually had that sort of example and been able to, I guess, sort of reflect back on that. Do we have any questions or comments in the chat at all for Kit? Your hands.
Not at the moment, but that might come up as people have had time to kind of digest some of those challenging and hard questions that Kit's posed for us.
Okay, should we quickly move on to COP? So I'm just going to very briefly then just let you know a few things that are happening, just I guess for your information as much as anything else. So I'm sure many of you are aware that COP26 is coming to Glasgow in November this year. COP being the Conference of Parties, and basically it's a big international summit looking at climate. So it's basically following on from the Paris agreements that we've got. So I think we just want to highlight that. If you can move on there, Mary, to the next picture. I think we just really want to highlight this as a context of learning for sustainability and climate change. And one for us perhaps to think about. There will be quite a bit of different support from different organisations. You can see Kirsten Leask in the chat here from Connecting Classrooms with the British Council. So there's a lot of partners going on. There's a lot of work. I always like to put up that John Kerry image just because the statement that Glasgow is the last best chance the world has is a bit of a mouthful, but one that I really, really enjoy. So round about some of that work that me and Mary are doing at the moment, we have set up a local authority strategic leads group. And we're really hopefully going to be able to disseminate information to you guys through that. I know that some of you actually here in this meeting are part of that meeting as well. We have a really successful partners group as well. We've just started working with YouthLink Scotland on. So over 50 partners, again, focused on COP26. And we're also, next thing we're doing is developing a practitioner network. So it'll be really useful as well of that network. So you can hear from people like Denise, some of the great work that they've actually been doing around about that. So watch this space, but probably the best thing to do is to email myself or Mary and say, really interested in being part of any of these groups, looking at professional learning, We're going to be looking at sort of national challenges as well that we'd like to do. But professional learning is going to be quite a big part of what we're really keen on. And I have to stress, it's as much about what happens after COP26. We're really going to be using that as a sort of springboard for the next bit. If we could just quickly move on then, Mary. And so just to highlight, within Learning for Sustainability, we have the self-evaluation and improvement framework that you can use. And we've got a long version and a short version of this. It's a really useful tool to, and in particular, perhaps if you're thinking about moving forward with your curriculum design, your curriculum rationale, it could be quite useful perhaps to do this as a staff, to really sort of reflect on where you think you are on this sort of stage of progress. So that's something there, and you can see the links there for that. If you could quickly move on, Mary. The other thing to highlight is the Outdoor Learning Wakelet and Learning for Sustainability Wakelet. This week, I should be pulling together a COP26 Wakelet as well. And what these are really useful, these Wakelet sites are really useful for, is pulling together all the offer. Because one thing I think we're quite rich with in Scotland is the amount of partnerships, is the amount of support out there for learning for sustainability, for outdoor learning. So there's huge amounts of offer, huge amounts of resource. This is what we're trying to do here, is that sort of one-stop shop, if you like. We will post the links into the chat. As I will do that in a minute as soon as I stop talking and pass over to Mary. I've got them up here as well. So really just to highlight some of that. And I see that Mary's put in our email addresses, so please just drop us a line. And yeah, we work very, very closely with the RICS, so we're aligned with RICS, so that's something that we'll be looking at as well. Mary, I'll pass over to you and I'll put some of these links in the chat.
That's great, thanks Mark. So folks, we just wanted to share a couple of things with you. We've got 5 minutes left of our time together. It's been a really full session. So one of the things that we thought we would show you from the Wakelet was some of the ideas for Outdoor Learning Day, Outdoor Classroom Day on the 20th of May. If you haven't seen them before, some just kind of nice examples that if practitioners in your setting are looking for examples there, they're available. And obviously the same as Outdoor Classroom Day on the 20th of May. So definitely a day to think about in your school or setting calendar, and with a week or so to go, what's going to be happening that's exciting around learning for sustainability in your neck of the woods. Mark's just popped the link in there, so that's grand. Thank you, Mark. We have done over the sort of the last year or so, Mark and I have done a number of different outdoor learning webinars, very much in partnership with organisations, national agencies, or indeed practitioners and school leaders such as Denise. And if you haven't seen them, we will share the kind of presentation with you so you can access them again and make them known to the practitioners that you work with. And that just probably brings us to the end. We're trying to stick to time as best we can. So we just want to say an absolutely huge thank you. We'll have time, I'm sure Denise and Kit have already said they're available for kind of questions and chat after that, after the sort of the formal recording has ended. But first of all, just to say a huge thank you, first of all, to yourselves as practitioners for coming along, for school leaders at the end of a busy day, at the end of what has been a tough year, a hard year full of challenges and opportunities for you. But just want to say thank you to you for giving of your time this evening. And to Denise, I hope Denise can come back on camera, because we have, and hopefully Denise has had a chance to digest some of the chat pane comments. Denise, you and I have had a couple of conversations in the sort of preparation and planning for today's session, and I was, genuinely bowled over by the Logan experience and your passion and enthusiasm, and as a school leader, how you've taken that strategic approach and looking at connecting things all together. So really the passion that starts, as you said, with wee steps. And how you've done that. Yeah, really inspirational, and I hope the colleagues on the call will have shared that sentiment. I'm sure that continues just now. But for you, learning for sustainability wasn't a bolt-on. It was underpinning everything that you were doing in Logan. And as we think ahead to this year and the opportunity that COP26 is affording us all within Scotland, it's not just something that's for now and for here and for this month or up until November, but it's something that we really want to take with us and move forward, as you've done in Logan. So you really have truly inspired us, Denise, with the range of
thank you.
experiences you offer, and you know, how you've drawn not only the community assets but the benefits for the children and for the young people and the practitioners, and how it's making a true difference. So we just want to say a huge thank you from us at Education Scotland and the practitioners on the call to you for the preparation and putting this evening together. And also for Kit, just for sharing with us that big picture context and connecting the dots and giving us that sort of attainment and equity angle, and helping us and encouraging us all to look back at the documents that have been sitting there perhaps on the shelves or in the filing cabinets and refresh and the refresh narrative too, and engaging with them and helping us to think as school leaders and practitioners for the way ahead. So thank you, Kit, thank you for your time, thank you, Denise, and thank you, colleagues. And we'll maybe just, Mark can pop the wee evaluation link in, and to the practitioners and leaders on the call, if you are keen to work with us, if you're keen to connect with us, thinking about outdoor learning, thinking about first learning for sustainability, we would love to hear from you. And as Denise said, there's a wee bee watching session that can happen in Logan Primary through Teams. And I'm sure she'll be very happy to connect with you there too. So a huge thank you from us. Ian, if you're able to stop the recording, we'll maybe just kind of open it up